Here's the mechanism just sort of freestanding, and you can see, if I operate it, you can see that the bolts come out around the edge as it locks and then go back as it unlocks. And you can see here, you can see all the different layers and the spacer, and down under there's the bolt or the screw with the 1mm head. You've got the bolt that goes along here, the arm that goes to the wheel, and then on the other side the copper arm bolt, that goes in there. And the washer, the very thin washers here, it's underneath the 1mm head or 1mm thickness bolt. So it's pretty intricate when you finally look at it. There you go, I think that's focused. But once you get the hang of it, it is pretty simple. It's not overly complicated, it's just there's 4 repeated blocks of sort of double lock bolts. On the other side I've put a cover. There's a cover plate which covers the bolts, so you don't see all the bolts that are holding on this mechanism. The pen holder sort of rack is 3D printed and then covered in crushed velvet. It's a design I've used before. These pens are Beaufort Ink pens, and the kits are pretty expensive, but they are really good, and I use them all the time now. Actually, I don't actually use any other kit at all. There's a fountain pen, ballpoint and a pencil here, and that just fits into the box. I think for almost every side that I made on the sides of the box, I think I had to do it twice. So this sort of frame around the engraved symbols that are on the plate here, which is actually, I believe, stainless steel here, that is metal. I had to do the engraving twice. The first one was actually the gold colour of the original, but I decided I'd go for a silver. There's there's quite a lot of gold on the other sides, and the pens are actually rhodium, so I wanted something that sort of balanced the overly gold colours. This is acrylic, and that was 3020. This is cut out on or engraved on the 3020, which is appropriate because it is really an engraving machine. These symbols are from the original, I just took half of them. This side here, I had to make 2 of these. The first one, the machine, something went wrong, I don't know what went wrong, and I actually bent my spindle, but the second one came out really nicely. The back is just white acrylic. This is 6mm black acrylic here. These are 3mm acrylic. These were done on the 3020, and I've got quite a few failed ones here. These are held on with the same spacers that I used on the mechanism, with screws on the back through the tapped dome head rivets. This is wood here, also engraved, and here you've got a sort of 3 layers of wood. There's 3 plates. There's one here right at the back in black. That's got the holes for the mechanism, which then goes through to the other side. Then there's another one here which provides a little step, and then there's another one which goes on top, which is larger again, and that's also engraved. The frame is engraved. The original, I think the original was laser cut, and that's in a way a bit easier because there's no force on the part when you're actually engraving it. You just place it somewhere, engrave a part, and then turn it over, engrave the next section. This is engraved to a depth of 1mm with a very small cutter, 1mm cutter again. And the pattern, if you look at the pattern, you can see that this circle starts here, wraps around here, wraps to here, and continues right the way round to here. And there's one edge which has a discontinuity on it, and I've ensured, or tried to ensure, that it's the inside edge here, which you sort of don't see. It's between here and underneath there. So when you look at it from the outside, it wraps right the way round, all four sides. And to do that, I actually took the original patterns, which were from the plans that I bought, and I converted those from DXF into G-code using a tool that I've written. And what I could do with that tool, I had to change the tool. I enhanced it so that I could take slices out of that DXF file and generate the G-code that would do one face at a time at different heights. You just sort of say where you want the Y to start and end, and you get a file which just does one face. So you do one face, you do the next, you do the next, you do the next, and you're done. But what it let me do was, if one of these sides was slightly out by, say, 0.5 mm or something, I could actually take the next slice 0.5 mm further down or up, and that meant that I could ensure that these points here, where you're going from one face to another, actually lined up as well as I could. And it's turned out pretty good. You can't really see on any of these faces any sort of problems. They just sort of line up perfectly. So that worked quite well, but I did have to take time out to write some code to enhance my DXF to G-code tool. But that was invaluable, really. But I think there were, what is there? There's 4, 8, 12. There's 48 sides to engrave. And the 3020 is not the fastest machine in the world, and I didn't really want to go too fast because you'll break the cutter. There's some fine detail here, and using the 1mm cutter lets you get quite a lot of that. But what it meant was, one face took at least an hour. It was about an hour to do one of these faces, and there's 48 of them, so that's 48 hours of cutting in the frame. So it all adds up, and I had a look, and I think I bought the first bit of material for this almost exactly a year before the day that I finished it. So quite a lot of time was spent on it. I mean, you can see that the main wheel on the mechanism is 5 hours. This is at least 48 hours just of cutting time. There's also setup time. Obviously you've got to align these pieces and put them in the correct place and so on. And that adds to the time that it takes to actually make the thing. The slots in the side, they were machined on the 3020. I actually manually worked out where the locking bolts would go by sticking some blue tack on the side and then locking it, and you could see the indentation of the bolt, and then I would work out where that was by pricking through the blue tack onto the frame, and that would give me the sort of layout of the slot. Then I'd use a G-code program I wrote to just cut down to a depth of I think it was 9mm the slot. So they were cut out they were cut out by machine, but they were lined up manually, and that takes account of any sort of variations in the mechanism, the top mechanism. There wasn't really a lot, but I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have to remake any of these parts, because they're you know, at least 4 hours each of engraving, plus the time to make another bit of wood in the first place to fit in here, and then make sure it fits correctly with all the other parts.